I was going to talk about cryptids today until I got an email about creepy ghost kids. I am so excited.
Welcome to the voicemail box of your local friendly necromancer. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Please leave a detailed message on which human, animal, or vicious hellbeast you would like to resurrect. Your call will be returned within 3 business days to book an appointment. Please ensure to have your down payment of your soul or firstborn child, or the soul or firstborn child of another being if you do not have one, at the time of your appointment. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Local Necromancer's Coffee Break, a podcast. A podcast. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say. Welcome back to the Local Necromancer's Coffee Break, a podcast where we transcend this boring-ass human realm to absorb all of the paranormal juices. And look at me, actually having a coffee desk setup today. I'm proud of myself. I actually did this and it was cool. It only took me 2 hours to get everything in order to film what's probably going to be a 20-minute podcast, but I'm proud of myself. It looks cool. I like it. Now, it's been a few weeks since my last episode, enough time that I decided to go with my natural hair instead of a wig for once, which is kind of nice. For those who don't know, back in September, I had a hysterectomy that basically saved my life, and before my surgery, I was dealing with a lot of hair thinning and some hair loss that was going along with everything that was happening to my body, because hormones suck, and I had cut my hair short before my surgery because I didn't want to have to deal with it for 6 weeks of recovery, and didn't realize the amount of time it would start taking to grow back afterwards. So I wore a wig for all of the first episodes of the podcast because I just wasn't ready yet. So my hair's finally grown out into a bob now. A little funky in the back from the pixie cut, but we won't mention that. You guys see me from the front. It's just been a wild last few weeks. The world kind of went into a huge shitstorm, which has not been fun. It's been affecting us very personally. I've just not been in the right headspace to be working on the podcast with everything that's been going on in the world. And I hit this point where I was like, how can I sit here and film something goofy and funny and paranormal when there's so much else going on in the world? It just didn't feel right. And I finally had to sit down with myself and say, when everything's a shitstorm, we need things that make us laugh. We need things that entertain us. We need that little piece of normalcy and distraction every once in a while. So if I can provide that to people right now when all of us are going through hell, I'm happy to do that. So this podcast isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I just needed a few weeks to get my head together and figure out what I was doing in this weird thing we call life. And with that, like I said in the intro, I was 100% planning to talk about a few cryptids today. I actually have had that set aside now a few times because when I filmed the episode about Bunny Man, I was going through about local legends and cryptids. And then I came across the Bunny Man rabbit hole, and yeah, I didn't come out of that. I was so fascinated by the story that I made it the entire episode. So I have an entire other episode written about cryptids that's ready to go. I just need to film it because after Bunny Man, I then decided let's just dive into Echo of Moths and post this audio drama edition. I think I honestly just forgot that I had the other episode ready to go, and I just got excited about Echo of Moths because it's very exciting. I swear, we will get back to the cryptid episode. But when I read these submissions, you will understand why I had to change paths so fast this morning when I got my latest email. And make sure you stay tuned afterwards because I might have a sneak peek at another audio drama. Echo of Moths is not going anywhere. I have the next chapter ready to go, but I'm also planning another audio drama that I think you all will really like. If you're familiar at all with these two little Funko Pops above my head and maybe this book that's behind Eva, you might be familiar with the book that I am turning into an audio drama. It's kind of just a for fun thing, but it's something that I think will be good in a time like this when we all need that little bit of distraction. I know that before my surgery, after my surgery and recovery, I basically lived off of audio dramas and graphic audiobooks. So I figure if I can bring that little bit of joy and distraction to other people, it's worth it. So stay tuned for a sneak peek at the end. And now it is time to dive in. Duolingo. Bird, don't come after me. I know I haven't gotten my shit together today, okay? The bird is gonna kill me one of these days, I swear to God. I don't think Duolingo was prepared for the ADHD brain of, okay, I'm gonna practice for 5 hours one day and then not go back to it for 3 weeks. Our first encounter was submitted by Gabby with pronouns she, her. Now, Gabby actually reached out to me about this on TikTok, and I very, very anxiously waited for her form to come in. I was very excited, and it was well worth the excitement. Super cool. This one I have already read. I got really excited when I saw her name pop up, so I hurried up and read it as soon as it came in. The second one, all I read is the title of the email of the second story that I'll read you today, because I saw it and I'm like, no, I have to react to this on the podcast. But our first encounter from Gabby says, my fiance, Daniel, passed away in a car accident in March of 2021. The first few weeks, I longed to sleep and hopefully see him in my dreams. Sleeping seemed like my escape from the real world. When I finally went home a month later after staying with his parents, I had a friend stay the night with me. She would sleep in his spot on the bed, and she would wake up feeling like someone was standing over her or at the entrance of the room, but she never told me anything. And I just want to say, like, that is a true friend right there. This whole story warms my heart, but like that friend especially just, yeah, that's what friendship is, and that just makes my heart so happy. Honestly, Gabby, I love your friend, and I'm so glad that you have her, especially in a situation like this. I can't even imagine. My mom lost her fiance as well, which was my dad, and I can't even imagine what you've been through. So, Gabby, thank you for reaching out to me. The first week she stayed there, I woke up in what seemed like a sleep paralysis, and my bathroom light was on when I know I turned it off. It sounded like someone with heavy footsteps walking back and forth. I couldn't see anything but shadows and heard the breathing. Then it fast-forwarded to my phone ringing, and when I answered, it was my fiancé on the other line, crying and saying he was so sorry. He said it about 3 times, then said, "I love you and Sophia," and hung up. And Sophia is their daughter. One night, I woke up and thought I heard my front door close. He worked odd hours and would come home late sometimes if he worked overtime. I shot out of bed thinking there was a burglar or someone, but there was no one there. I continued saying it was my mind playing tricks on me. A few weeks later, I felt confident I could stay alone. My neighbors upstairs would check on me if I needed anything, and I felt like I could go to them for safety. I woke up at 5 a.m. to get ready for work, while my daughter stayed asleep in my bed. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-restroom apartment, so my master bedroom shared the bathroom, and the other entrance faced the front door of the apartment. I typically kept all doors shut in the house. I entered the restroom just as I heard an interior door open and close. Pausing, I thought to myself if I had left anything unlocked. I opened my bedroom door to make sure no one entered, and when I did that, I remember hearing 3 knocks from somewhere on my daughter's side of the bedroom. I didn't feed into it. I just continued my day and blasted Christian music. Since I've moved, I haven't experienced much, except for one night. My daughter and I both had the same nightmare, and she said she saw a monster in the same direction I felt I saw something in my dream. Upset, I walked into her room and said, "Daniel, your one job is to protect her, even in the afterlife. So do that, and get rid of any and all negative energy from this house. It is not welcome." It's been quiet ever since. When I read this, my heart, oh my god, like, I love the idea that Daniel is still around to protect her and Sophia. Like, this just, it makes me so happy as someone whose dad also died when I was very, very young, and my mom and I have always been extremely close because of that, and his passing is actually what got me into the paranormal, because I always wanted to believe that there was something more after we died, that our loved ones could still be with us and we could still talk to them. And as someone who has successfully been able to speak to her dad in the afterlife, this story just makes me so happy, because it kind of helps validate the experience a little bit of, okay, somebody else has this experience. Like, he is clearly still around, still protecting the daughter, and it's so sweet. Like, even the phone call gave me chills, because I 100% believe that she could have picked up that phone and he was there, because when I was 13, my mom's best friend passed away from cancer, and they were like sisters, and I called her my Aunt Leslie. And not too long before she passed away, because she had a really fast decline with her cancer, she had texted my mom, because she was posting a lot about like having her boxing gloves on because she was a fighter, and so we had sent her pictures of us wearing these boxing gloves, and she had responded back something about, "I've got my boxing gloves on and I'm ready to fight," and how she loved us. And for years after she died, all of a sudden my mom's phone notification tones would go off, and we knew, like, we'd just get this feeling in our chest, and we'd open the flip phone, and there was a message from my Aunt Leslie, who had already died, saying, "Got my boxing gloves on, ready to fight." And it didn't matter, every single time that that text message came through, we were getting ready to head into something awful. And it was her kind of warning us and saying that she's got her boxing gloves on, she's ready to fight, she was ready to be there and protect us. And it's been a lot of years. My mom's phone, we don't even know what happened to that phone, honestly. She had to switch phones, and then we just kind of lost it. Like, we have no idea where that phone is. But I wholeheartedly believe that if we were to power it on, those messages would still come through, because even after she switched phones, she switched phone carriers, that phone was not active. Every so often, the notification tones would ring with no service on that phone. And it would still be my Aunt Leslie coming through telling us she had her boxing gloves. And we've actually since then, since I've gotten more serious into paranormal investigating, I have actually gotten communication from her, which has been just so wild and so cool because she is so avid about making sure that we can still communicate with her, even though she's definitely a very quiet spirit. She's quiet in life and she's quiet in death, but she's always there and she always lets you know. So yeah, this whole story is just, it makes me so happy. I can't say that enough. Like, thank you, Gabby, for sending this in. And I hope that you enjoyed being able to have it read on the podcast. Thank you again for reaching out. I'm so glad that you did. And I hope that you and your daughter and your friend are all doing well. And I love you guys. Now, the second story, Gabby submitted hers through the Google form that I always post. And the second story came to the submissions in my email, which you can find below. It is localnecromancerscoffeebreak@gmail.com. Feel free to submit your stories there in the form, wherever you'd like. I think you can actually do longer stories in email, but I also wanted to have the Google form just for like ease of access kind of stuff. So feel free to submit it anywhere you'd like. Just grab me somehow and tell me to read your story, and I will. Just make sure that on the Google form where it says, do you consent to having your story read on the podcast? If you would like it read, make sure you check yes that you consent. And because I did have somebody that submitted one and said no, which is perfectly fine. If you don't want it read in the podcast and you just want it shared, that's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure that you know, in case you did want it read, make sure you check yes so that I can read it, because I always want to make sure I have consent. So this email caught my attention immediately this morning when it came in, titled, "Why Did It Have to Be a Creepy Ghost Kid?" with 4 question marks. And the minute I read this, I laughed because yeah, there's nothing worse than a creepy ghost kid, I think. Normally I would say, except haunted dolls. Sorry, Catherine. And yeah, so this is Catherine up here. She is super sweet. The story of how I ended up with Catherine is kind of interesting. Let me set this down for a hot sec. So I went to Goodwill one day just looking for some different things to buy for like a Goodwill haul that I could investigate, see if there's anything attached. Well, I also went there with another purpose in mind, because I have a friend in the paranormal community that I like to pick on a lot, that I am going on an investigation with later this year. And anytime he's investigating, he'll like point to a doll, be like, if you move, I swear to God, I'm running out of this place. So I was like, I need to buy like some kind of doll that almost looks like it could be haunted, and then take it with me on this investigation and see if I can prank him with it. Well, as we were looking, I came across a doll in a wooden box with a glass front that totally gave me Annabelle vibes. And as I went to go pick it up, my mother was just standing there and she's like, you are not bringing that into the house. Because my mom has successfully managed to freak herself out watching enough paranormal investigators that she's terrified of dolls now, especially if they are in a wooden box with a glass front. She has nothing to do with it, especially considering that, obviously she knows about Annabelle in the box, but she also knows of Robert the doll, which I actually have an interesting experience with that I may or may not share eventually on the podcast, that may or may not tell you into my surgery, but we will talk about that another time. Anyway, I was like, okay, fine. I was picking on her back and forth, but no, I'm gonna buy it. And I was like, no, I'm actually not going to. As we were joking around, there were a ton of other really pretty porcelain dolls in the area. And so I'm just looking around and my eyes land on Catherine. And she was just so pretty. She's adorable. I love her. And I just felt this vibe off of her, like there's someone attached to this doll, and it was like that person was reaching out to me. I decided to get her and I brought her home, and I actually did film a little bit, which I haven't posted yet because I still haven't filmed the rest of the antique investigations, because I was testing out a new camera that I had gotten and wanted to test out camera and audio with it. So I set it up, and as I was testing everything out, I put an EMF on Catherine, and then I was running Spirit Talker in the background as I was unpacking. I was asking like for her name and that it was fine, if she didn't feel it to talking, and it came up and said, my name is Catherine. And as soon as it said that, the EMF spiked on her.
My name is Catherine.
Your name is Catherine? Is that your name? That's a beautiful name. I've gotten that name a lot on Spirit Talkers, so... Oh my goodness. Hi, Catherine. I saw the EMF spiking.
I was so excited because oh my God, she answered my question. And my intuition was right. There is actually someone attached to this doll. So I ended up talking to Catherine for a little bit, got some interesting responses. Again, I will share the video. I'll probably put a clip in here, but I will share the video more later when I actually get to finish the investigations of the rest of the items. Again, life got a little crazy, but this is Catherine. She is super sweet, and she has told me that she is going to protect us. Actually, if I'm being entirely honest, the spirit activity up here has calmed down, because I've talked about how I've had a ghost dislocate my shoulder up here and a lot of the other weird experiences that I've had specifically in these 3 rooms, and so much of that has actually calmed down since Catherine came home with me and said she would protect us. So I definitely feel like she is doing that. And the other wild part is that for weeks before I found her, I kept getting on Spirit Talker, "My name is Catherine," and I was confused because I didn't know a Catherine and I didn't know what that meant. But I've had that happen other times where I will get names or phrases and not understand what they mean until later on. And so I think Catherine was kind of looking for me even back then, and then it was just fate. So now we will find out about the creepy ghost children. The email says, "Hi Wrenna, my name is Erin, pronouns she, her, and I've always been slightly open to the paranormal, even if a bit skeptical. I always felt like the ghost shows on TV were fun, but the investigators scared themselves more than any ghost did." Okay, true. I've gotten that sometimes. I feel like even when I'm investigating, I fall into that sometimes myself, where I will scare myself more than more than any ghost could scare me. I scare myself. I think everybody does that from time to time, but yeah, some of the ones like on Travel Channel, Discovery, I definitely agree with that. I grew up watching those too, and they definitely scare themselves a lot, and it's so funny. I never really had an encounter of my own, even if I wanted to believe something more existed, and even if a few of my friends had their own stories. That is, until somewhat recently. I work in childcare, in a newer built building that shouldn't be haunted at all. I think of haunted places as being run down and older than dirt, but here, I don't ever feel comfortable when I'm alone, especially with the lights off. A few times, I thought I caught something moving from the corner of my eye, but I always said I was just freaking myself out and laughed it off. Or tried to. But my coworkers never feel like they're actually ever alone in the building either. One claims she's heard growling in the walls. I tried to change the subject after that whenever she brought up ghosts. Nope. No thank you. No creepy things growling. Oh my god. Erin, you just gave me flashbacks. I also used to work in childcare, and at some time or another, there were multiple of us that would hear growling in the walls. Where do you work? Which facility did you work at? Because I swear to God, maybe we worked at the same one. Like, there's no way that this person would have known this. That is so weird. I usually work an early shift, but one night, my boss was out sick, so I closed the building. Everyone else was gone, and the last kid got picked up an hour earlier. So I had everything locked up, and after I finished turning off all the lights, I ran full speed toward the front door, only to find a child outside the glass door. I didn't recognize the little girl, but I worked with 1-year-olds, and she looked about 5 or 6, with long straight blonde hair up in 2 high pigtails and a dirty pink bubble jacket. She kept rubbing her eyes like she'd been crying. So naturally, I opened the door and asked her what was wrong. She told me, "Please let me in. He's trying to get me." I didn't hesitate. I would have hesitated so hard. I ushered her in and then poked my head out the door to check our surroundings before I locked us in to ask her about him and call someone. No one was around. See, my God, I'm so sus about this already. Like, this gives me chills. The parking lot was empty except for my car. There were no people, and I couldn't even hear footsteps if someone had been approaching. A chill went down my spine. Mine too. And I immediately closed the door and made sure the crash bar was locked. But when I turned around, the little girl was gone. I hadn't heard footsteps or any indication she'd run off, and the entire entrance was cement floor, so I couldn't have not heard her. But I ran through the building looking for this child, you're braver than I am, and I couldn't find her. I immediately called my boss and explained what happened. She didn't live far, so she rushed down, and when I let her in, neither of us could find this girl. She offered to check the security cameras, but when we found the right timestamp, I saw myself open the door, look around, and close it. With no one else there. No guy. No child. Oh my god. Oh my god. My boss asked again what the little girl looked like. This boss has seen it, I bet you. I described her blonde pigtails and coat, but then my boss asked, what about her eyes? What? Her eyes? Excuse me? I was puzzled, but told her the little girl had been rubbing her eyes like she was crying. But it was dark and her face was covered in shadow, so I couldn't tell what her eyes looked like. They looked black from the shadow. Erin, I hate to tell you, I think you might have run into a black-eyed child. I have them on my list to talk about in an episode, and Erin, I think you might have just bumped that up. You might have just bumped up an episode. We might have to wait with the cryptids again, Erin. My boss went pale and told me that another coworker of mine, the one who heard the growling in the walls, had recently reported seeing a similar little girl on the playground with her kids. My coworker didn't know who the child was and figured maybe a neighborhood kid had hopped the playground fence. But after a few minutes, one of the little boys from class who had played with this little girl came over crying, saying this little blonde girl had kicked him and her eyes were funny. When my coworker asked what was funny about the girl's eyes, he told her, they were just black, her whole eyes. I'd heard about the black-eyed kids before, but figured it was just a myth until then. I tried not to think about it again, but I never volunteered to help close the building if any of my coworkers got sick again. 100% valid. But this little girl haunted my dreams for weeks. This all happened about 6 months ago, and I never saw her again until last week. Saw her again? Excuse me? I was getting a tattoo covered up, and it was a later appointment. When I left the shop, I heard a little voice go, "Excuse me," and run past me through the door I held open. I turned to look at this child and caught a flash of blonde pigtails and a pink coat before she turned around, giggled, and ran around the corner. Oh my god. Oh. It was the same little girl with the same solid black eyes. No whites, no irises, just empty darkness. I haven't seen her again, and I was too afraid to run in and see if my artist had also seen her in the building. But now, let's just say I'm not actively going outside at night for a while. I wouldn't either. Honestly, after hearing this, I might not. Do I have a ghost kid now? Can you even adopt black-eyed children? Should I be worried? Anyway, thanks for hearing this long rambling tale, and I hope you're doing well, Miss Necromancer Queen. Thank you. I love that. Necromancer Queen. I like this title. Thank you. Stay safe and don't get possessed, Erin. Oh my god. Oh my god. Erin! I think you did somehow adopt a black-eyed child because what? I have to see if this is normal that people see them multiple times because that's not something I'm not sure about that. I need to hang on. We're gonna look this up. We're gonna look this up for a sec. I'm gonna read you guys a little bit about the black-eyed children. I'm going to do a whole episode on them. They do have to be invited in, and she invited one in, so it's like, okay, do they just stick to that property? Do they follow you? Because clearly she's now seen it multiple times, and these are different locations. Like Wikipedia says, black-eyed children or black-eyed kids, an American contemporary legend, are paranormal creatures that resemble children and teenagers with pale skin and black eyes who were reportedly seen hitchhiking or begging or are encountered on doorsteps of residential homes. I'm trying to see if there's anything about them following you, because I thought maybe they stuck to the one location, but I can't find anything at first glance, but I'm going to do some research into that for future episodes, so I think we're going to do that pretty soon, because now you've got me going down a rabbit hole in my mind already. I'm gonna need to do some more research on this. Erin, what have you done? Oh my god. My brain is so broken. It's just, that is wild. You have to let me know. Like, send me an update if you see this child again. Because what? I don't know what happens if you invite them into your workplace and then they follow you to the local tattoo parlor. I'm curious. Please, like, let me know what happens. Like, if you had things happen at home or at work again, like, I am so curious, man. Thank you for submitting that, because that's gonna have me puzzled for a while, and I love it. I love it. I'm also not going out at night for a while. I'm going to take your advice on that. That's What do you think, Catherine? Would you play with the creepy child? I don't think she would. And normally, I would say that is all for today. But I made a promise for some audio drama goodness. This audio drama sneak peek is based on a favorite book of mine, which I might be kind of biased about, because... Eva, watch out. It's my own book. This is my book Baby Vision, and it is about an author named Eva who kind of gets sucked into her own fantasy world with a twist, because she writes all of her books based on dreams about a fantasy world named Estrella, which she soon finds out is real, because all of her dreams were glimpses into another realm that she didn't know actually existed, until her main character finds her and saves her life, and he's this hot guy with wings, so why not? I've totally not got his wings on my arm. This is Emrys, who is Eva's main character with his lovely wings. He is adorable. I love him, and I love this Funko Pop. So much of him. This is Eva. She's our main character. She is also absolutely adorable. Like, they even got her updo right, which is just so cool. So Eva and Emrys go on this little journey together. She's not going to stand up. Oh shit. Oh shit. I think she's been off drinking with Emma. She should know better than to drink Australian nectar. It's not meant for humans. There. She's on the plant now. I'm going to put Emrys over beside her. That is the premise of Vision. I put this book out in August of 2023, and I'm currently writing the sequel called Risen, which, like, seriously, look at this cover. It is absolutely stunning. So I am working a little bit slowly on turning Vision into an audio drama. I do have one scene ready, and I am so excited to bring this out because it is going to be available free on podcasting platforms. Right now, obviously, the book is not free. So if you want to listen to the audio drama, go for it. It's exciting. It's super fun, and I hope you all enjoyed this little sneak peek into the world of Australia. Before the guards could reach the exit, slim fingers clutched Eva's forearm. Mistia dragged her behind the bar and made a beeline for the swinging kitchen doors. "Thank you," Eva said, voice thick with emotion as they pushed through the doors. "You saved my—" Mistia slammed Eva's back against the cement wall beside a rack of pans, knocking the air from her lungs. The satyr slipped a hand beneath the lace collar of her off-the-shoulder bodice to reveal a dagger tattooed along her collarbone. The hilt materialized beneath her fingers, and she pressed the weapon to Eva's throat. She scanned Eva's face with a stare so cold it froze her on the spot. "What are you?" demanded Mistia. Though her high-pitched voice gave the impression of a harmless mouse, Eva had never been more terrified. "Eva? That's your name, dollface." Mistia leaned closer until their noses nearly touched. "What are you?" Eva stammered again, her lips emitting nothing but strange, fearful noises. What was the phrase? She had to remember the code phrase. Kalia Ikes? Mistia's brow lifted in a sharp yet confused arch. "How do you know goblin tongue?" "Emrys sent me." Eva yelped as Mistia's nails dug further into her arm. Blood trailed down her bicep, warm and wet against her goose flesh. "That's impossible," Mistia growled. "Emrys is dead." "He is not, I swear. At least not yet." Tears stung Eva's eyes, blurring the edges of the satyr's glowing face. "Please, he's outside, but he's hurt. If the guild finds him before we can help—" Mistia pressed the blade closer, hardly a millimeter from breaking skin. "Emrys says my eyes give me away," Eva begged, her voice hoarse under the weapon's pressure. "Look into them, and tell me if I'm lying." For a moment, as Mistia's stare bore into her soul, Eva prayed that her throat wouldn't be slit in that woman's dingy kitchen. But while she braced herself for searing pain, warmth swelled in her chest. Afraid to move, she felt heat work its way up her body, filling her with an emotion she had never felt, like pure, unfiltered rage that dissipated within seconds. Even as the sensation faded, her gaze fixated on the woman in front of her. Mistia's intensity faltered. She lessened the pressure on Eva's neck, lips parted just enough to notice. "Fine. Take me to him." If Eva didn't know better, she would have sworn Mistia's fingers trembled when she retracted the dagger. The satyr's piercing nails lessened to a firm grip, though she yanked Eva from the wall with just as much roughness as she'd placed her there with. Mistia clenched her jaw, whipping Eva around and pressing the dagger's point to the small of her back. "But if you are lying, I'll rip the flesh from your bones and use it for a wineskin." I hope you all enjoyed this little piece of the audio drama for Vision. If you want to read the whole version of Vision right away, you can find it right now on Amazon. I'm working on getting my Barnes & Noble ones back up. I had to make some edits, and Barnes & Noble can be a little finicky for self-publishing, so thank you all so much again. I really appreciate you all sitting down and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, don't get possessed, drink lots of coffee, maybe sprinkle a little water in there, and if you see a black-eyed child outside of your workplace, maybe don't let them in. I don't think it's a good idea unless you want to adopt them, in which case, go ahead, but don't bring them here, please. I've got enough spirits here. Thanks.